Gray, and good friend of mine, co-songwriter, worked for me on the Life and Times album. Actually co-wrote the song Warren G, which is the first song on Life and Times, and then also the song Time, wrote the chorus in that. Anyway, we share the same affinity for the paranormal and also our so-called conspiracy theories, which I would kind of call more of a truth. Yeah, it'd be
The
more.
truth that the masses don't necessarily see it.
Or the masses don't want you. Well, yeah, the masses don't see, but the powers that be don't want you to see, basically. So yeah, but
People keep being sheep, then they
yeah.
have a very bleak view of the world, I suppose.
Right. Well, there's so many, there's so many distractions, you know, and I mean, just think about entertainment, and now the news is just propaganda. That's all it is. But okay, the topic right now, let's talk about paranormal situations. You know, we both stay in haunted houses.
It's true.
Yes, like in our house, you know, in this place where we practice and everything, there are random knocks at the door, and nobody will be there. We'll see orbs flying around to and fro. We'll hear voices, you know, and some type of a weird happening. Like, I've noticed sometimes I'll hear the voice of someone who's about to be there, who hasn't been there yet, you know.
Same thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's something about this area. Like, okay, I was in the bedroom the other day, and I was waiting for our other bandmate, Joe Lancaster, to arrive, and then all of a sudden I heard what sounded like Joel, like, just open the door and say, "Whoa!" And I was like, okay, Joel's here, and I go look at the door, and it's locked, closed, all that. And
Is that not slightly characteristic of Joel? Does he normally enter that way?
no, he doesn't normally
I
enter
didn't
that
think
way,
so, I just-
but it sounded like his voice, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, that got me to thinking about something, but I'll continue.
I have nothing to continue with. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but no, I was thinking, you know, we were talking about before, we were talking about, you know, the, you know, however you want to term it, the veil being thin between worlds, let's say, or dimensions, or however you want to look at it. You know, like I said, I think there are many layers of, there are many dimensions, you know, like I started to wonder if ghosts, you know, or even ghosts, you know, like in a traditional sense, or, you know, maybe there are ghosts, but at the same time, you know, like I've heard some people with paranormal field say, you know, like there's, I can't even think what you call it. I'm getting tongue tied, but you know, there's like an interactive haunting, you know, where there is a spirit that can interact, and then you have these other, I cannot think of what it's called, but you have these other hauntings that are just, you know, recreations of like a moment in time, like I think it's called, like the stone tape theory. And it got me to thinking, you know, I don't know if any of these theories necessarily hold true, you know, I mean, it makes sense, you know, like, for instance, you know, like quartz stores energy. That's why, you know, they have the crystals in the watches, and they use them, you know, in computers and things like that. But anyway, but no, it got me thinking, like, the stone tape theory, like, I'm not particularly sure, you know, how this building sets, or, like, necessarily everything it's made out of. But, like, it just got me to thinking, like, you were talking about, like, you hear voices of people you know coming in, you hear the door open, you hear keys jingle, you hear, you know, those types of things, but it got me to thinking. Like well, I've been thinking about it since last night, I guess. You know, when you came down, we talked about, you know, a little bit paranormal type things. Uh, just like simple things, like, you know, they say, you know, there's stone tape theory where, you know, I'm sure most people watching have heard of the stone tape theory, but the theory that, you know, whatever, wood, rock, water, things can absorb,
Mhm.
you know, energy, and, you know, theoretically, like, you know, you hit the right time of year and everything's just right, well, it plays back
Mhm.
whatever it recorded, you know.
Right.
And I got to thinking, well, in my house, almost all the voices you hear, almost all the sounds, you know, the oven coming on by itself, switches and all, and
That's
burning off
scary,
on
man.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one disturbing thing. Like, particular house really doesn't bother me except for the mimicking thing. You know, I've always heard that's not necessarily a good thing. You know,
Well,
if you got
yeah.
something that mimics something else.
Well,
And
I would say that would typically be like demonic
Demonic,
entities.
okay,
Yeah, trying to impersonate your loved ones.
well,
You
we did have that little run in with the with the demonic thing. That was fun.
know? Yeah.
That's like
and-
that girl screaming last time we were over here. You remember that, like in the middle of the night, but there was you couldn't
Yes.
find the girl attached to the screen.
Yeah.
That's the second or third time I've heard that. But you know, I got to thinking where most of what you hear in my house, like it's gotten to be more active now. Like you can see it, you know, like you can see it in the living room, you can see it in the kitchen, and it's not always the same entity or whatever you want to call it. You know, I'm pretty sure there's at least two, if not three. But it got me to thinking, like, yeah, I'm going way out of the way to make a short connection. But
Sometimes you have to.
but my but my kitchen and my bathroom is all done in this I don't know. I mean, you see, I guess I don't know if it's slate or what exactly, but actual like slate tiles. And then in my bathroom, you know, there's, you know, of course on the floor, and then even the walls of the, you know, the shower are that slate, you know, stone. And it got me to thinking, like, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know for sure, but, you know, like, that would be at least another way to look at it. Like, maybe it's not necessarily something else mimicking people you know, or whatever. You know, if the stone tape theory is true, let's say, and ironically enough, we have the most activity in the bathroom and the kitchen, which are, you know, sort of connected, I guess, in a way. I mean, you know, very close by proximity. Made me think, you know, if the stone tape theory is true, well, that's a lot of stone all over the floor and the walls and whatever. So I wonder if, like I've noticed, me and Beth have both noticed, like when she gets, you know, angry or upset too, but especially me, like if I get upset or angry, you start to hear knocking in the walls, and it's, you know, very distinct, like, sounds like somebody tapping in your walls, but it, you know, it's up in the corner, or it's, you know, but there's nothing attached to it, and it's not like you know, it's a mouse, you know, whatever, but, you know, and I have seen things jump off the table in front of me a couple times, and, you know, I never really believed in, you know, psychokinesis or telekinesis or whatever. Now, I'm not sure if I do, but I do know on a couple occasions I have seen something lift up off the table, hang in midair, and just kind of shoot across the room. But anyway, my point is, if we are capable of doing that in any form, you know, in any form, if we're expressing that level of that energy, let's say, well, if the stone tape theory has any validity, you know, as far as those things, you know, retaining energy or you know, or trauma or whatever. If, let's just say, you know, let's just say it wasn't the haunted house. Let's say it was me somehow, you know, picking up a tube of chapstick and throwing it across the room without touching it. Well, if I could exert that kind of energy, and the stone tape theory, you know, is true, well then it stands to reason that all those slate tiles could be sort of absorbing some of our emotions and our energy.
Right.
Because, you know, where she's been having the seizures, and, you know, I got a spinal injury last year and stuff like that. It's been, you know, we've had a lot of stress. So, you know, it just stands to reason that if there is any validity to it,
So
it could
there's-
potentially be that as opposed to something mimicking us. Maybe it's our own voices playing that, you know?
Well, there's
But-
more activity when there's stone or when there's water. Yeah. Yeah,
We have a
I
leak
mean,
under our house, which doesn't sound like much, but I actually went under there this morning, and like a quarter of our house, we got like an inch of water that just sort of
is
sits
it
there.
under the kitchen?
It actually it starts under the bathroom. It's from the tub, I believe it is. We tried to fix the tub, we tried to fix it. That's where I think it came from initially. But I mean, it's always wet in there and muddy most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But and I have seen, I've seen mud, and I know it's rained quite a bit. But even after I've seen it rain more heavy than this, and there's mud in the basement. But I've never seen an accumulation of water, like an inch, a couple inches deep, or whatever.
And that's what you're dealing with now.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I don't know. I know they say that about water, and you would think, if it's something that, stores energy or plays on the back, you would think that it would be like flowing water, like something to do with kinetics would have something to do. But, I mean, maybe, a horse is just a horse, the water's there, the stone is there. I mean, the house is framed in wood. I mean,
I wouldn't say a horse is ever just a horse. I mean,
just ask the Trojans.
I would say a horse is the composition of all of its cells, and when you get to the atomic aspects of it, I mean, you got millions, if not billions, of aspects working together, to hold this life form intact, and then you've got the genetic code, the genetic memory of it all, and and then you've got the experiences of that horse, as it goes throughout life, that's getting maybe imprinted on its mind, that's influencing it. I mean, I don't know how much a horse can learn, but I mean, we're just saying a horse, just like it's anything, so I mean, water holds memory, and I mean, I say a lot of hauntings are probably related, probably has something to do with the stone tape situation, I would say anytime a traumatic, violent episode has happened, you have that real intense energy. It tends to play itself back. And I would say intense energy, whether it's positive or negative, because, like, as far as positive energy goes, like, when my father and I recorded at Sun Studio, when we were playing our songs, it was like the energy of the building was working through me. I mean, it was this euphoric thing. And when I was in Nashville, I walked in the Grand Ole Opry, and I'm telling you, dude, it was like you could swim through that energy. Like,
I know exactly what you mean. I mean,
yes,
I've never
you
been
can
there, but I've
feel
been
it.
places like that.
Right. And anytime that it's negative energy, it's very oppressive. And if it's positive energy, I would say it's just as real, but it gives you this euphoric feeling, it definitely affects us.
Yeah.
The voices of the people that are about to be here, so it makes me wonder if there's some type of a lapse in space-time, to where somehow what's going on beforehand. All right.
I think you're. I've been looking at it like the same way, and so hopefully that part of what you said came through rather clearly for the breakdown. I've been looking into it a lot, like kind of like you're talking about, like I'm not saying that it's all like you're talking about, like past or present or future or this reality on top of this reality. I'm not saying it's all that, but I think a lot of what's going on, especially in certain places, it seems to be like, like how they say, like, like on Halloween or Samhain or whatever, how that's traditionally, since forever, has been like, they say with like the veil between the worlds is the thinnest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they're like, I don't begin to know what causes it, like if it's, trying to think how to term it. I think there are certain places where I'm becoming like a firm believer in like string theory and that type of thing. And it seems to me that, especially in certain places, like for instance, y'all seem to have a lot of high strangeness in here, right?
Right.
So I think in some places, I'm not just not necessarily saying a house, and I don't think it's always a person that's haunted, and sometimes I'm not even sure that it's a haunt. I think in certain places, like for instance, like say like Berry Hill Bridge, there are some strange things, and there's all kind of rumors of Satanism and this and that and the other thing. But if you've ever been down there, for any length of time, there are periods of high strangeness, But so I think there are like these certain places where, kind of like I said, where the veil is kind of the thinnest, but it's not, for a night of the year. But like I've seen things, like particularly out of Berry Hill Bridge Road, a couple of things, 2 or 3 things I can't really explain. And on a couple of those occasions, well, all those occasions, I think there's always, somebody with me. But I've seen things that, like, to me, as crazy as it sounds, I've seen, like, there's one thing that I could only equate, like, for instance, this one thing in particular, I've only seen it once, and I could only equate it to, the only thing I could think of to equate it to would either be, like, a Bigfoot or a werewolf, or a full-grown man in a head-to-toe gray fur costume at, like, 2 in the morning, just happened to wait for a car to come by, which I don't think that it was. So
he really needed a ride.
he really needed to get shot.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's a bad spot.
Yeah,
to be a game animal that's 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
But down there, like for instance, Berry Hill Bridge Road. I don't think a lot of people know, but a lot of the Revolution was fought in that area, and before there was a bridge there, it was a ferry crossing. It's been a ferry crossing since I can't remember, late 16, early 1700s, something like that. And anyway, they did have a battle there somewhere, and I'm not particularly sure I'm not sure what it's called at all, but actually, no, that's where Berry Hill gets its name from. I think we talked about it before, about Bury Hill is actually the name. And where that comes from, I think it's sort of twofold. At this point in time, the Patriots were like on one part of the river, and I can't remember particularly if the British were on the other side or they were further down or whatever. But anyway, the British thought they were going to be slick and come before daylight and flank these Patriots and kill them. But obviously Patriots are pretty good at guerrilla warfare, hence the winning. So they're like, we'll just pretend like we're going to sleep till, like midnight or 1 o'clock. Then we're going to go flank them. So anyway, they did, and they basically massacred that British regiment or whatever it was. And that's one of the twofold reasons where it gets its name. They just, there wasn't any love lost between the Loyalists and the British. So, the Loyalists and the Patriots. So they, once they killed the British, they just chucked them down in the hollers. They didn't bury them or anything. But later, I'm not sure how it worked. I don't know if family members came from England or if their relatives from here came. I think some of the bodies, were recovered and returned, but only via their own families. And then plus, there's a lot of, before that, there's a lot of Indian burials around the area, Native American burials, and particularly building a couple of the larger homes, like the, I guess, plantations or estates, whatever you want to call them. They had this tradition of, they had this tradition of, let's just dig the bones up. Like when we find bones, we'll just pitch them down in the hollows. Why worry about burying them? They're just Indians, So that's kind of a twofold reason. And I guess.
Tell me about Hart.
Hart. Yeah, we were having this little conversation about Hart, and I guess it kind of ties in. Obviously, now we're kind of going back over it. Hart, like I said, everybody's concerned with CERN. That would make a bumper sticker, I guess. But anyway, everybody's concerned with CERN. And you got you know, the Mandela effect, and you know, they're doing their absolute best to, you know, they've already managed to what, make molecules more or less teleport from one place to another, just stop existing and then reassembling somewhere else
Right.
without being anywhere in between. Not in this reality anyway. Well, they do that, and then, you know, they've been trying to basically open a hole, you know, to an alternate, you know, to an alternate reality or whatever. And matter of fact, I think I heard a while back that they actually had a little bit of success with it some kind of way. But then, you know, then you got places like the Skinwalker Ranch, and then the Star, is it Starlight or Star something Ranch. Anyway, they have very similar things about sort of portals opening up, and it kind of ties in, you know, what I said earlier about, you know, there are, you know, like multiple universes or layers.
What's up, baby? Do you want to sit down and watch us do this? Okay.
Some candy?
You can sit right there.
And but you know, and they have had some measured success, or at least from what I've heard, they've had, you know, some level of success with it. But then you got these other places, you know, like I said, like these certain places that just, I think, sort of more or less have this natural propensity for the things to be, you know, to the veils being thin. But however, in saying all that, it's like I said, taking a long roundabout way to get nowhere. But
Well, they're using equipment to actually make these veils thinner at certain points. You know,
yeah, that's true. But I do think that there are some places where it's just so thin on its own that, you know, you can
right.
kind
They're
of poke
playing
a
off
pin
of that.
through it and,
Yeah.
you know, climb into it. Matter of fact, I've heard something to that effect from those two ranches I mentioned. And the funny thing about those two ranches too is I've heard of the Skinwalker Ranch, and, you know, I did as much research as one can do into it. I have a really good book about it. The other ranch I hadn't really heard of, but it's in a neighboring state, I believe, but they're fairly close proximity. But both places have these really similar portals that open up, and they see these things come out of them, like, you know, we were talking about, you know, Barry Hill with these creatures, which kind of brings me. I don't want to get too far off topic.
Right. It was a wolf-like creature.
Mhm.
That was at Berry Hill, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you know, what I saw, you know, I could only equate it, like I told you, you know, it would either be, you know, a werewolf or Bigfoot. And I mean, that's the only two logical pop culture
Right.
references. And it made me think, you know, where, you know, there were a lot of Indian burials, you know, there. You know, you do have, you know, you have the skinwalkers and the, I can't even think, but you got the skinwalkers, and then you got the, they have several things that fall within that category. So that made me think, you know, maybe some of what's going on down there has to do with, you know, like Native American spirits, simply because, like, we don't have any sort of, like, Wendigo or Skinwalker or whatever. And I know that, you know, Indians or Native Americans, they believe these things, right? They really believe it. Like, they believe them so much so that most of them won't talk about the Skinwalker or something like that. Because if you do, then you're inviting it. You know,
Right.
you're bringing it down on your, you know, on your
Right.
village or whatever, and it's bad. But these two, and I want to get into heart, but these two ranches, since I happen to bring it up, I found odd. Both of these ranches have a reference to portals opening up, and they've actually, both places, they've seen portals open in the air, and they've seen lights come out of the portals, they've seen ships come out of the portals, they've seen people step out of the portals, and animals that don't exist here, like, you know, like certain things, like the Skinwalker Ranch, for instance. They had this one that at first they just thought, you know, it was a wolf, or, you know, like a coy dog or something like that, but it was like a huge wolf, and it came up like it was tame, even let the family pet it and play with it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it grabs a calf by the head through a fence and tries to pull a calf through the fence. And, you know, they shoot the thing, they hit it with
And
a
it wasn't
bat, they
fazed by the
shoot
bullet,
it several
yeah.
times, and, you know, eventually it knocked a chunk of fur off of it as it was running away. And when they got to it, it was like a, you know, just a chunk of meat with fur on it, but they said it smelled rotten, you know, like putrefied meat. And the thing had been shot several times hit with a bat several times, shot with a 357, I believe, 4 or 5 times, then shot with a 30, I believe a 308 rifle, you know, half a dozen times or more.
Right.
But anyway, when they were trying to do some research into it and trying to figure out what it was, because it's not one of the things like if somebody made it up. I mean, it's the Uinta Basin, that's where that particular one is, in Utah, I believe. And that whole area, they have this craziness going on, you know, like, and it's everybody.
A lot of cattle mutilations going on in
yeah,
that area.
cattle, and as a matter of fact, on this ranch, they've had that very thing happen. They've had bulls disappear, 4 like 2,000, 2,500 pound bulls, all put into a cattle trailer in a matter of an hour. But the thing is, the cattle trailer is wired shut and even had cobwebs on the inside, you know, where it hadn't been open in so long. And when they're looking for these cattle, you know, they're prize, steers, and they can't find them, and which is ironic because the last thing the woman said when they were leaving, you know, so much has happened to us. We've lost so many cows, you know, to this mutilation and just, you know, up and disappearing that, you know, if we lost these 4 bulls, that would be it. You know,
Yeah, that's like $20,000 a bull.
Yeah, well, I believe these were even more. I'm trying to think, there was some particular type of cattle, but they're quite expensive. I think they were like something, maybe they said something like
Angus beef,
$8,000, $10,000 a piece, sometimes up to like 12 or whatever. But they had lost so many cattle. They lost dogs. They lost chickens. You know, all kind of things. Dogs are like turned into jelly by light. But you know, just crazy things. But you know, like I said, I don't want to get too far off the topic because I know we were going towards HAARP. Because I think people sort of forgot about HAARP. You know, everybody's like about CERN, but then you've got HAARP just pumping this stuff into the air. However, before I get to that point, this is one thing that I thought was very odd for these two. One of these places is in Arizona, the Star, whatever, I can't remember what it is, Star Walker, I think it's Stardust Ranch, I believe it is. It has the exact same report as the Skinwalker Ranch on this. They have the same thing, like the animals coming through and seeing things come out of these portals and whatnot.
Is it in the same state area? Like,
one's in Arizona, but I'm not sure where in Arizona. So
the
I
other
have to
one
look
in
it up.
Utah.
And the other one's in Utah, but I mean, they're really not. They're not that far off. I mean, they're kind of, you know, but they're in that section of the country. And that's kind of like, you know, I don't know if any of y'all have ever, or you, I may have told you something about it, but that guy, I believe his name is David Paulides. He's got there's a series of books now called Missing 411, and it's about these people that just go missing. Like, you know, you're walking a trail in the mountains, you know, turn around to speak to your wife, and you turn back around and your child's just gone. And they search the area a million times, they don't find anything. Then, you know, on the 5th day or 7th day or whatever, or the same day, it just depends. Like, they find the child, you know, like 4.5 miles away, like 8,000 feet up a mountain, on a ledge that you could only get to, like you would need equipment to get to it. But the funny thing was, like, the kid, a lot of these people that go missing, if they do find the bodies, a lot of times they don't, but when they do, their shoes are gone. Their shoes are always gone, and sometimes, I don't know if their socks are always gone or not, but their shoes are generally always gone, and it's like they're smashed from the feet up. It's like something picked up, you know, this child or person or whatever, and, you know, took them up some height and then just dumped them, which is weird. And I've heard, you know, everything from Bigfoot to aliens to whatever. Although there is one account when a boy went missing that another family saw what they thought was a man hunting, you know, in a you know, in a ghillie suit or something like that. They didn't really think about it at the time. They didn't know that a kid had just went missing, but they saw this big man that was like, he said about 7 feet tall or so, and had a bundle over his shoulder, like inside of a, you know, burlap sack or something. That's what they thought at the time. They couldn't really make it out. They didn't really think anything about it. You know, somebody hunting, you know, they bagged it there, wrapped it up, threw it on their shoulder.
Right.
But it was such close proximity to this other place that they sort of made the connection that that boy went missing, and very shortly after, these other people who didn't know the boy was missing at all see this large, what they think is a man in camouflage with, you know, a bundle over his shoulder, and they got people thinking, well, is there a serial killer, or is there, you know, but it seems to be a leading theory, you know, kind of like Bigfoot, you know, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know, but it is strange that people just, you know, up and go missing like that. But these two ranches, they have portals that open up, and in the Skinwalker Ranch, actually there's a couple books about two people who've actually went into those somehow and managed to get back out. One, I believe, was a security guard, private security guard that got basically pulled in, like literally got sort of pulled into one by something.
Mm-hmm.
But both of these I found extremely strange in that both of them had the exact same description of the type of portal, the things that come through. But what I found really interesting is both of them, they think that they're portals, like natural portals, or, you know, spirit world or whatever. But both portals, they have seen specifically Roman soldiers, like, I don't know if it's a singular soldier or, you know, if it's a legion or whatever. But either way, they both described, you know, definitively seeing singular Roman soldiers, like, you know, the helms, the breastplates, the, what do you call them, the Brutus or Gladiuses or whatever, the short swords they use, the exact dress. And they see these portals open up, see Roman soldiers step through, and then just kind of disappear into nothing. And I find it odd that these two ranches that have these same, or so much similar activity, why both places, why they would see, like, centurions coming through the portal and then just sort of disappearing. Alright, move back to this one real quick. Double check. Alright, that's framed up pretty good. Thank you, Miss Kyra. You're good at that. We're gonna have to start getting her to do the camera test. She's good at it. She takes direction better than me or you. It's just the right height.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Wow, I got a big stomach. I wonder if it gets bigger if I move closer. Yep. The perspective. You ever realize how perspective is? That is funny. Forced perspective. It's funny.
The camera's going.
That's the kind of gems we should be recording and putting out to the world right there. That's what I think. It makes no sense, but it's funny. Just the same.
It was recording while you were doing it.
Oh yeah, it was. Alright. So we're gonna pick it up there.
Alright. Okay, going from the Skinwalker situation to art. Okay, because with the Mandela effect gaining prominence, you know, as far as subject for debate, a lot of people point at CERN, and I think one of the reasons they think CERN is a culprit is because of that one photo of the guy in the CERN office with papers all around him, and he's holding up a sign that says "We're all happy at CERN," and he has two signs around his neck. One says Bond number 1, and the other one is Mandela. Well, if you search the first Bond film, it was by a guy, I think his last name was Nelson. It wasn't Goldfinger.
That's right, it wasn't Goldfinger. It was, can't remember. That's terrible.
That's what it was. Can't remember. It was about a guy that knew everything and then forgot all of a sudden. But anyway, going into see, all right. Everybody thinks CERN is one of the main culprits, but like you said, seems that everyone's forgotten about HARP.
Yeah, hard. Trying to think. I'm trying to think exactly what HARP stands for. You would think that I would have double checked it. Anyhow, but think. You think HARP, think of DARPA. I mean, that's the way I would look at it. Advanced Research Project or something like that. Anyway, actually, a lot of people do think that HARP is actually not for oral. That sounds like oral research.
Oral, yeah.
That it's not. It's not about producing these lights and things. That HARP is just one of.
I mean, it's weather modification.
It's weather modification, and they're trying to produce these auras, these lights, like we already have. But a lot of people think that it's really you want to call it like a black project for DARPA, which everything from DARPA more or less is a black project. I mean, you have a black project, you've got God knows how many billions of dollars a year, and no oversight from any government official or agency or private or whatever. But DARPA, they do all kinds of stuff. Well, a lot of people think that HARP is just another facet of DARPA. And I mean, really, it stands to reason that it is. I mean, even if it was just weather modification, or they were just trying, to produce the lights or whatever. I mean, it's all using, our little bit of knowledge to influence the world around us, and it's gone from, me and you talked before about how, I think we both sort of agree that if you believe in something enough, especially if you can get a group of people to believe in something enough, like, just say for instance, David Koresh, he thought he was Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, wasn't a problem to convince himself. I mean, I'm pretty sure David Koresh knew that he wasn't Jesus. However, much like Charles Manson, if you can get one or two people to your wavelength, to your way of thinking, but it's not important. It's not really important that you prove. It's not like you have to, feed a village with a fish and a glass of water or something like that. It's you get one or two people to truly believe that you are what you say you are, and the hard part's really done because those people will convince other people.
Right.
And it's just like how I was watching something about Charles Manson, and they were talking about how they were all eating acid or whatever, and all of a sudden this new girl that comes into the group, and she's like, who do you think Charlie is? What do you think Charlie is? What is Charlie's name? And the girl's looking at her befuddled, like, and then, one of them just sort of outbursts, like, you stupid cow, like, man's son, he's the son of man, Charlie is Jesus Christ. Well, see, it's kind of the same thing, but, it's just, I don't know, I guess it's just a different way of looking at it. I mean, it's all, if you believe in anything enough, and you can get a small group of people to believe in it, I think you can, you get things to manifest, come
Right.
into fruition.
Right.
So, kind of like I was talking about, Barry Hill, it, like I said, the Jeepers Creepers, man, like the two of us very clearly saw it, and, for all intents and purposes, you've seen Jeepers Creepers, it looked like the Jeepers Creepers, man, which got me thinking about, whether it could be a skinwalker, from the Native Americans or something to that effect, or, another reality or another, whatever, but, so we have, everybody's all concerned about CERN, currently, and they, like we talked about before, you know, they do this and that, and, you know, they are, whether they've actually ripped a hole in space and time, you know, sort of immaterial, because like I said, I do know for a fact that they managed to move small particles, like, you know, from here to here, but really, that's not so interesting, you know, you can, well, it is, I mean, you know, you could teleport a particle, you know, but, however, the interesting part, the part I find funny is when it moves from here to here, you know, it's nowhere in the space between, you know, so if it was there and then it disappeared, but it showed up here, but it was never anywhere in our, you know, in our reality here, then, you know, where did it go? Did it go to another reality? Or did it disassemble?
It's just like
you
the
see on
TV
Star Trek
room.
and reassemble?
It's just like the TV room, you know, at the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You know, all those particles go up into the atmosphere, you know, and then manifest somewhere else, you know. It really reminds me of the Montauk Project too, you know, how they were using, actually they had a brain, I don't know if it was a transmitter of thoughts in a way, but it amplified a person's thoughts, where you could go in there and anything that you thought of, it would manifest. You know, like they could think about a cold can of Budweiser, and it would manifest on the guy's desk. You know, like say by 3 o'clock the next morning or something like that. You know, it would be cold and taste like Budweiser or anything. You know.
Yeah, where's that power at?
Apparently that power ended up getting out of their hands because that monster was created, right? And they had to shut the facility down, and that monster, that beast that ended up terrorizing the whole facility might still be cemented into the structure, might still be down there locked in somewhere.
Yeah, we were talking about Montauk. And
I mean,
the
one of my heroes, man, is his name leaves me now. That main guy.
you talking about like a scientist, or
He was the guy at the Montauk. Preston Nichols.
Preston Nicholas?
Yes.
I think it would come to my mind is Nikola Tesla, and I know he wasn't the Montauk,
Well,
right? Although
I mean,
he probably had.
See, Preston Nichols. So it was in there related somewhere. But Preston Nichols, you know, is like in his 80s now, and he's messing with radionics. You know, he's like, if you were to go to his facility, like basically he could use analog sound to give you music therapy, like real music therapy, you know. And I'd really like to get into radionics. I think we ought to figure that one out, you know.
Yeah. You know.
That looks weird.
My eyes are like crazy blue in that light. Well, actually, they look more green.
My eyes look like they're black.
Okay, but going into heart. Proceed.
Going into heart. There's one thing I want to tell you real quick, though. I'm trying to get out. I'm not going to go on a big tangent here, but you're talking about... Sorry, picked the wrong time to eat candy. The Montauk Project. What was the name of... You know what the name of the military base was? In Montauk? I can't think of the name of it. Well, anyway, they turned it into a state park now. But they leased it to the state of New York. But the interesting thing is, there's still, you know, a few buildings on top of the ground, and, you know, back when it was in operation, a lot of the property was, it was fake stuff, like they had a church that was, like weird stuff, didn't make sense, like, it was like a cafeteria for the soldier station there or something, but it looked like a church from the outside, you know, just things like that. Well, those things are still around, but the federal government had the stipulation that this base, I can't think of the name of the base, but where the Montauk project was, or maybe still is. You're talking about the thing that was released. I can't remember that part particularly, but like I said, I don't want to not completely. I don't want to go off on a huge tangent. However, they did have one stipulation that they'll turn over the land to the state of New York, you know, for use as a public park. But everything above ground is for the public. But the federal government still owns and has control of everything underground. And all of that base is underground. I mean, there's a couple buildings on, above ground that, are nothing. And there's only, with the exception of one, really tall building that's got this, I can't remember what type of radar. It's one of the first kinds of radar, but it has this huge dish, and it's, originally what it was supposed to do is pick up, so like the Russians come or whatever, it's supposed to pick up bombers or whatever, far off at, like, towards the sea, so you have time to react. Well, what I find interesting is all the buildings above ground that are supposed to be open to the public. Well, they've welded plates over anything metal that they could, and doors or whatever, where they didn't think home, welding, an inch or two thick, steel plate is enough. They just poured concrete. So in some places, like the doors and the windows and stuff, I mean, you have slabs of concrete that are 3-4 foot thick that cover all the entrances to these places. And I just found it interesting that the federal government still controls everything underground. And this huge building with this huge radar emitter, or I'm drawing a blank, it has been seen to turn on its own by itself, but the place has been shut down for however many years, and I've actually seen videos of people that have went there and managed to break in or climb it or whatever, and they get to the top, and the radar dish itself is falling apart, but somehow the thing has turned, and it happened so much one year that they called whomever, fire department or whatever. Fire department goes in. They take a torch, I believe, and cut through the steel plate to get access to the building, because there is no access to it. You can't get in anymore. So they go in it, and they go up, to the room or rooms or what have you, where all the gears are, that would turn it, if it were on. But there's no power to the building at all, and it's very obvious to them that when they got there that nobody had been there. There's no way that this thing could turn, and it's locked in place. When they stopped it, it's locked in place. It's not like the wind was causing it to revolve. And then they have these couple guys that stay in an RV all the time. The only way you can access that park in a day, but if you want to stay there, if you want to do something interesting like explore or something like that, you have to get a pass from, I don't know, New York's Parks Department or something like that. And then it's still only supposed to be for, I think, 2 or 3 days at the most. You can stay there or camp. And they have parking lots, whatever, like for tourists, nobody's ever there. However, there are these two guys that always stay in this one parking lot in this, $200,000 RV, and they're, you pull up next to them and they pretend to be tourists, and, where are you from?
Always asking those
you
questions.
got Florida plates there, and then, say you're going around to the back of your car to get, a tent out or something. Well, they follow you to the back of the car, and they look in your car, and they want to know this, and it's so blatantly obvious that they're
Government employees.
they're government officials. And it's like, it's almost to the point of being creepy. You can even go to Google Earth and search for this base, and you'll see that RV there. It's been there for years, and technically it's not even legal. There's no way that you can stay there for that length of time. It's just, but anyway, that was, I try not to go too far off on a tangent, but I found that to be fairly pertinent in and of itself. But Harp, you want to just keep rolling with this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Harp, like I said, the government, I think, in my opinion, is all everything's misdirection. Like, watch this hand. While this hand's going in your pocket, taking all your money. I mean, everything is misdirection. Black projects. And as a matter of fact, I heard something the other day about the government has admitted to, from, I can't remember if it was the 50s or 60s, they know that they did it in I believe the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and up into the 90s, and potentially still is going on, but they have admitted, like, for 30 years that the Air Force and the Army sort of joint went in together, and they created certain things, like they made lights in the sky, and they made things to look like spaceships, and they faked crashes, and they did all this stuff to, like I said, it's all misdirection, so for them to cover up their own black projects, they're like, people are paying too much attention, so what do we do to swindle them? Misdirection. So they create these things, and then they do them in such a fashion to where, a few people will see it at one time, or a few hundred, or a few thousand, and they're manufacturing evidence of aliens to keep us from seeing their newest spy plane, or
Right.
the newest UAV, or whatever.
It makes me think about the Phoenix Lights.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Very much like that. But HAARP, I think is misdirection in a sense, because, we were talking about CERN, and, CERN is opening these little ripples in time and space,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that I've ever read or I've ever heard, like I always say, it's not that it can't be done, it's not that time can't be changed or altered, it's not that you can not move forward or backward in time. The thing is, you can, you got your Einstein Rosen bridges, or wormholes, whatever you want to call them. And, it's more or less, it's a point of fact at this point. It's not like an idea. If you can open one of these, one of these portals, one of these gaps, to hit one of these wormholes or Rosen Bridge, it's completely plausible, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Google a wormhole or Einstein Rosen Bridge.
Well, there's that one guy that actually went into a wormhole through, like, he was working on his sink. I don't know if you know about this or not.
I've seen that.
He had his cell phone on him, apparently, so he was able to get proof of it. But he went in through his sink, and he found himself, 30 years later.
Yeah, 30, 40 years, something like that.
Right. And I mean, the way that they kind of proved that in the video, or he tried to prove it, was showing the tattoo. It was the same identical tattoo.
They're also dressed like more or less identical too, which is, you would think the gap in time. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
I don't know how you would test the validity of that. It's just up for speculation for sure.
Find the old guy and paint this crap on him, and he looks enough like him. That's pretty much all you need to sell it,
Yeah, well, I do have to say, like...
That's such an out there story. If you were going to make that story, would you really make it about fixing a pipe under your sink and you crawl into the future?
Right.
That's like beyond H.G. Wells crazy,
Yeah. That would be like poor writing, or or maybe creative writing. I'm not sure.
Creative, but not necessarily sophisticated in any sense.
Nah.
But yeah, I'm actually getting the heart this time. So I'm getting the heart.
Three videos later.
Yeah, man. Ain't gonna stifle me. Sometimes I gotta talk for 3 hours before I get my point across. getting into HARP eventually.
I mean, as far as this Mandela effect
Yeah.
goes,
We should have just recorded our original conversation about HARP. But yeah, no. As far as it goes with the Mandela effect, like where I was going before, it's okay. You got CERN. CERN, you know, they're doing everything from transporting, you know, particles from here to there, being nowhere in between, and you know they're very much trying to, you know, open up a gap, you know, between this place and somewhere else, which, you know, if the theories about wormholes and, you know, Einstein-Rosen bridges are true, not really sure why you would want to do that, because even if you, you know, if you open a wormhole, you know, this big, doesn't really matter because the way it warps time and space. I mean, potentially it could suck the whole Earth in, you know, and spit it out, you know, in another galaxy somewhere or whatever. It's kind of a dangerous thing
power of it. I
to
mean,
do with it.
so it sounds like there's some type of a relation between wormholes and antimatter, right? Because antimatter seems to have that power too.
Yeah, well, they, you know, first they had dark matter, and, you know, then they kind of, you know, they sort of proved that dark matter existed, and then, you know, they come up antimatter, which is, you know, sort of a, I guess, you know, a conundrum, you know, if you look at it that way or whatever. I mean, it's, antimatter has so much more potential energy than matter, you know, dark matter, or just matter in general, and just manipulating it a very little bit, you know, causes, like, massive, you know, reactions. Like, you know, you think of fusion bombs, and you think of fission bombs, and then you think this, you know, like, it's just this grain of nothing, properly agitated, could destroy the world.
Well,
you know,
all of our
create the
molecular
world.
structures are tied to that antimatter.
Yeah.
So I mean,
That is pretty crazy.
that is pretty crazy.
But the thing with, you know, the thing with CERN is, or HARP rather, you know, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We kind of went in depth, you know, about it a little bit. But okay, you know, if they're trying to open a wormhole, you know, like I was saying before, it's not that it can't be done. It's not that you can't open a wormhole and traverse through time and space through it. It's like I said, it's pretty much point of fact at this point. You know, it's not really a theory so much anymore. But you need like a massive amount of energy to do it. It's, you know, it's like sort of on par with, you know, getting a ship with humans in it, you know, approaching the speed of light. You know, it's just,
It would take like 10,000 years to get, like, say, a pound of antimatter.
yeah. But I mean, you know, but the logistics of it, you know, it's crazy, like, how much has to be done. But my whole thing about HARP is, you know, they say, you know, it's this oral research project where, you know, they're doing everything from, like, manipulating auroras to you call it, weather modification. That's, I don't even know, on their cover page of their, whatever you call it, you know, every government agency, you know, has a cover page that surmises, just, sums up, you know, what they do, I guess, or whatever. And theirs, you know, they've got like 5 pages of, like, basically gibberish, you know, and the more you read, the less sense it makes. But, you know, like we were talking about before, you know, HARP has this, you know, antenna array somewhere in Alaska, I can't remember. But, you know, there's other places in the world, like, I know Russia has 3 or 4 actually. I think the one I'm referring to is somewhere in Siberia, but they have several, and then there's, I think, 2 or 3 other countries in the world that have similar antenna arrays. And they've been around longer than HARP, but they all, you know, they all basically say the same thing. Either they're doing weather research, or they're doing aurora research, or they're, you know, basically taking radio waves and electromagnetic waves and bouncing them into the ionosphere to see if they can, you know, if they can manipulate the weather a little bit. If they can make it rain today, or make it be, you know, 60 degrees in Siberia instead of, you know, minus 120 or whatever. That's what they all, you know, they all have you know, similar but different. You know,
It's like they all had the same cover story.
yeah, it's like that's what I'm going to say. It's like they all read the same manual about, you know, what do you call this huge antenna array that makes people sick and,
Yeah.
you know, kills the world. Researching auroras. You know, that's what we want to do. But you know, they have this massive amount of energy that they need, that CERN needs. And you know, I'm not saying that CERN directly. I mean that HARP directly supplies energy to CERN. It's not, you know, not what I mean. But by, you know, by their own admission, they're bouncing, you know, these high frequency, high power waves off the ionosphere, and you know they're bouncing between the ionosphere and Earth. You know, they're doing all kind of things, and you know, like I told you, you know, people, and something else I found weird. All these, you know, Aurora research antenna arrays. I just find it kind of interesting that they put them all in places where there's already northern lights. You know, like Alaska, you know, the Aleutian, Siberia, different places like that. Seems like to me, if you wanted to prove that you could create auroras, that you wouldn't.
You'd be going away from that area.
Yeah, why?
It naturally creates it.
Yeah, I mean, how could you really prove that, you know, that you were doing it? They had been happening there forever. But people that do live around, you know, those areas, do talk about how the auroras have. You can tell, like when the antenna arrays are active, because they produce brighter auroras, they're more brilliant. They're lower to the ground, like they don't seem to be in the ionosphere, like, you know, they're very much lower, and they produce arrays of color that are not natural. You know, an aurora is caused, you know, I believe it's when the sun has like solar flares or, you know, coronal ejections. The solar radiation comes in, and you know, we have these, you know, like at the poles, for instance, you got these, you know, the magnetic fields, and you know, this solar radiation comes in, and the way it hits the ionosphere, you know, it lights up, you know, whatever. That's sort of the long and short of it. But you know, then you've got HARP, you know, that's what they say. And I was watching this documentary one time, in particular, and it was about these two guys that basically hunt down, you know, conspiracies, things like that. Can't remember the name
Like a
of the show.
Mythbusters for conspiracy.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I think they did some other stuff about, like, some of their stuff is, you know, about like mythical creatures and stuff like that, but not like they're not out like hunting for dragons, you know, or something like that. But they're like they have, you know, every place has, you know, their own legends about this or that, and you know they go, but it's all about conspiracy. You know, it's from, you know, whatever. Like I said, cryptozoological animals, you know, right on up to, you know, government black projects.
Gotta take a break, dude.
You know, like I said, it's got, in my opinion, probably does a lot more for CERN, you know, in some kind of way. You know, projecting the power, something to that effect. You know, like I said, I'm not saying they directly supply, you know, power, you know, across the world, this place, but, you know, if the veil can be thinned, you know, and it takes these massive amounts of electromagnetic energy, then it stands to reason that an array that does nothing but pump, you know, all this crap into the air, into the ionosphere, is kind of exactly what you would need to, you know, create that rip, or that, you know,
Right. Especially in places that are vulnerable.
especially. And I mean, you know, like I said, you look at the places where, you know, where these arrays are, you know, it's like, you know, Alaska, the Aleutians, Siberia, you know, just these remote places. Which reminds me, there is an interesting thing about Russia. If you remind me after this, I will tell you. Anyhow, HARP. I was watching this documentary, and it was about, you know, like I said, it's one of those shows where these people hunt down these conspiracies, you know, and different things like that. Well, they try to get get inside HARP. I mean, like legally, you know, all these places, all these government facilities, most of them are at least partially open to, you know, like public tour, which is kind of a fancy way of saying, you know, we'll, you know, kind of like North Korea. You know, you got all these beautiful grocery stores, and till you actually open the door, and realize it's, you know, it's all wax. It's an empty building. But they, you know, but anyway, HARP. They try to get, you know, get legal access to HARP. To interview somebody that worked for HARP or help invent the array, you know, any of that. They didn't have any luck, and they got a message from, I don't know, I can't, you know, I know we're kind of in a time crunch, so I should probably have my facts in front of me, but whoever handles, you know, like public affairs for, you know, HARP and those types of places, DARPA. But anyhow, they were told that, you know, no, it's not possible to, you know, to have a tour. You know, a lot of the work they do is classified, or, you know, the same old blanket thing. But it's kind of funny, you know, you got this seemingly innocent scientific, you know, endeavor that is, you know, classified. So, kind of makes you think maybe not just a brilliant scientific endeavor. These two guys. I can't recall their names. I can't recall the name of the show. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, you know, they try by hook and by crook, and so they're like, well, you know, we'll ride up to the place, because they've been told that not only was it not possible to go there, but that HARP had been shut down for, you know, some outrageous amount of time. Like, it had been down for like a year or two or something, and you know, basically the government had, you know, cut the funding, closed the doors, and, you know, that was the end of it. Well, they get there, you know, they get up close to the gate, and they park, you know, I don't, you know, maybe 50 feet from the gate, probably not even that far. And they get out, and, you know, I believe it was a cameraman with them, if I'm not mistaken, but, you know, you have this one guy that's real gung-ho, about, you know, oh, we're going to go in there, we're going to see what's going on, you know. He's like, you know, at the same time, you know, they tell us that, you know, the project is closed down and there is nobody here, so, you know, it's not you know, it's not, I guess, in the government's eyes, it's still, you know, you committing the crime. But, you know, to them, you know, not so much, you know, it's an empty, you know, there's, you know, abandoned military bases everywhere, you know, Montauk, like we're talking about. But, anyway, so they get up to the gate, this one guy's all gung-ho. Well, he goes up to the gate, you know, and he's fine. He's you know, he's going to go in that gate, and he's going to walk down to the array and the buildings, and he's going to see what the hell's going on, you know. Kind of like very Jesse Ventura-ish in the conspiracy show he had.
And I mean, he wasn't freaked out by it in the first place, by even the concept of going in, and the other guy was.
Yeah. I believe, unless I'm misremembering it, but you know, my memory is pretty sharp. That the guy that really didn't want to go so much, he you know, he went on to the fence, but he's a little jittery, a little nervous, you know, really. Well, he, you know, the guy that's gung ho, he's fine, but this other guy, he starts getting towards the gate, and he starts to feel a little bit of vertigo, you know, and he's like, you know, maybe it's just, you know, it's cold here, the air is thin, you know, just trying to explain it off. And I don't think he ever actually even makes it to the gate. He gets about 3 feet from the gate, and he gets so dizzy he can't hardly stand up. So he kind of goes down, and he throws up, and, you know, he's just sick, and he can hear this sound in his head like somebody is, you know, taking a pickaxe and trying to tap their way out of the skull, and he's just writhing around in agony. Well, the cameraman, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the camera had a little bit of a glitch to it too. We were talking about earlier. I'll get to the other part of this, but anyway, the cameraman and the gung-ho guy decided, you know, that there's something going on. You know, this is more than anxiety. You know, that's what they thought at first. But I mean, this guy's just crippled with, you know, mind-numbing pain and nausea, what have you. So they get him in the car and take him. Well, firstly they just trying to get him away from the array, I guess, and whatever. They got him once they got him back to the hotel. Actually, they took him to a hospital or a doctor, I believe, and he was basically cleared, but they could tell that he was in distress. They just couldn't figure out what from, exactly. But later on, they interviewed the Gung Ho guy. Interviewed this guy who claims to have been abducted, and he claims that he. And when I say abducted, like, you ever seen the X-Files? I imagine that's more like what he's talking about, not like an alien abduction, but he's abducted as if they were aliens, but they're not. They're give anybody enough drugs and put the right light to them, and make them think anything. And but this guy has heard things in his head, like he thought maybe he was schizophrenic or something like that, but turns out he's really hearing these, these voices in his head and these things like this. And at first he thought, it was the aliens. Then, it occurs to him, it never really was aliens, it was people. So there's got to be something to this. So he starts digging into it, finds other people who've had similar experiences. And while he's talking to this guy, I can't remember how he figured it out or whatever. But anyway, this guy, he said, I know this is going to seem silly, and, you see it in, movies and TV, like Signs or whatever. He's like, but I found that, a thin layer of aluminum foil, in my hat, or on my hat, whatever. So I try to put it in my hat, so, it's less conspicuous. But that, it seemed to him that ever since that he'd been doing that, these migraines stopped, these voices in his head, all this stuff. So this Gung Ho guy, he keeps that in mind. They go back, him and the other guy, cameraman, and they rent charter a helicopter, private helicopter. And Harp is, like most military bases, Air Force bases, what have you, they, restricted airspace, above them. And plus, where they're throwing up this electromagnetic or microwave, whatever kind of radiation it is, potentially it could, make a plane fall out of the sky. Because they're all computer controlled,
right,
electronic, whatever.
It can malfunction either way.
And so they rent a helicopter, and this guy's like, we only have a certain period of time. I mean, not a certain period of time. We only have, we can only get so close to the airspace. We can't physically get over the airspace, because it's, it's a big no-no. Even though the place is supposed to be closed down.
Mm-hmm.
But they get to it, and that reminds me, I wanted to tell you something about the voices. If I'm not mistaken, on the drive there, the radio, I could be misremembering, this might be from the Skinwalker Ranch. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was the Skinwalker Ranch. Because
Okay,
the
well,
radio was like,
radio,
do
like,
not go,
yeah.
666, Satan, and all this
but
other
I
stuff.
believe it was something sort of similar too, though, if I'm not mistaken, about this.
Because you're seeing the correlations between
Yeah,
the two.
yeah. And, so they get this helicopter, and they fly as close to that no-fly zone as they can absolutely get. Well, they almost get as far as they can get. The guy with the foil in his hat, strangely enough, he's not affected. He's cool. The guy that had been affected before, same kind of thing. Starting to get vertigo, starting to get sick, starting to, his head starting to pound. And about that same time, the it's a brand new, some sort of, expensive DV camera, just, outrageously expensive. But it almost looks like an analog camera. Like when they start to get close to Harp, which is closed down, these like lights on the ground start lighting up. Spotlights start to come on. Like there are people there. And they're obviously watching their airspace. And they get close. That guy starts getting sick, what have you. And about the same time, they try to edge a little bit closer, and his camera is looking like like an old, I don't know, VHS camera or something, that's with the tape that's been recorded. You start to see lines in static form, and the audio is dropping, and it's pixelated, and it's it's obviously some electromagnetic or microwave, some kind of radiant energy is affecting.
Right.
And their mics, you can hear their mics squelching and stuff like that. Well, this guy, he gets a warning on his helicopter. That's, if you ever hear a low terrain warning on any aerial vehicle, it's not good. But this particular one, you got this almost sound like a fire alarm going off. Like, it's just for a couple seconds and it stopped. And and they think they're okay, so they edge a little bit closer, and then everything, gyros, compasses, altimeters, everything, starts spinning, starts moving. How they talk about like Bermuda Triangle, and you go across it or through it, and
Right.
everything electronic just
Malfunctions.
just messes up. Well, that's what's going on, and it gets so bad that the helicopter pilot, he's getting, his panel is lighting up like Apollo 13. It's like, it's that bad, like just warning, and all that stuff's going crazy. Well, the helicopter starts to buff it, like it's starting to rattle, and it's starting to pitch, on its own accord, like he for a minute he lost control of the rudders. I mean, he didn't lose control. He physically had control, but it's like
Yeah.
it was doing
Wasn't
basically
responding.
what it wanted to do, and it's buffing, and he's trying to figure out, and for a second he thought he was just going to have to just kill the engine and hopefully safely auto-rotate to the ground so they don't die. But he's like, sorry if y'all didn't get what y'all needed, but, we're getting the hell out of this airspace before, we come down and kill us all, especially we go down in that antenna array, we all know. But as soon as they move away from the array, and they start to move away a couple 100 feet, 1,000 feet, whatever, everything, the cameras come back, the audio comes back, the gyros, helicopters flying smooth. And just real quickly while we're on that subject of HAARP, I don't know if it leads me to this other part, like I said, and I can't remember if it's the same show or it's another documentary or something other I watched. Similar thing though, like just the conspiracies, unnatural things, mysterious disappearances, I believe is what this particular show is about. And I equate it with HAARP. I believe it was fairly close to HAARP, but they were talking about how where it's an oral research program. One of their main goals is trying to recreate the Northern Lights, and which they've done. And like I said, people say you can tell when it's active, because the lights are more brilliant. They auroras only occur in like 3 or 4 different shades of color, but these that HAARP is making, they come out all kinds of colors, like rainbows of colors,
Right.
and it's just not a natural type thing. And people say, well, some people say the auroras themselves tend to drive some people mad, like they can't deal with it. Well, that kind of brings me back to another point, like MK Ultra and things like that. Well, think about it. HAARP is bouncing all this crap into the ionosphere. So let's just say if an aurora can make you can make you hallucinate or make you lose your mind or make you stumble off into the wilderness. Let's just say that it can. Well, what does a souped up government version of that do?
Right.
And this particular time, and the reason, like I said, I equate it with HAARP is this guy was up on a mountain, and he had some kind of expensive camera or telescope, whatever. He's rather famous, particularly for just photographing the Northern Lights in different different places in the world. But he said this night there was a full moon, and the reason he went up the mountain to do that, that he, I mean, it's always Northern Lights, but I guess he just happened to be set up there that day, or I don't know exactly, but the reason like I said, I think it was fairly close to Hart, but the reason I equate it with Hart is how he was talking about how that night he had never seen such colors in the auroras, and they were lower. The lights were a lot lower than they normally were,
Right.
and just
He was seeing a synthetic aurora.
he.
Did he know that he was seeing a synthetic?
I don't think that he did at the time, but I believe he started to suspect shortly after that he may not have known exactly what was going on, but he, at this point, he had a pretty good idea that, whether it was Hart or whether it was, just an old illusion, fairy tale come true, or, whatever. But he's going down the mountain. He's done shooting the auroras, and he's going down the mountain. And he sees this girl walking towards him. He doesn't really think anything about it. But she just kind of shoulders into him, like, kind of like she didn't even see him or something, and kept on walking. And, at first it didn't immediately strike him as, strange, but then he got something just in his head just clicked, or he said something, something didn't feel right, and that's another thing that kind of makes me equate it with Hart. He's talking about how, like the hair on the back of his neck and his arms stood up, right? Like electricity in the air, and he couldn't quite figure out, but he figured out that something was wrong, that's what he equated it to. So he turns around, hollers at the girl, a couple times, "Are you okay? You need help." She doesn't respond, so he catches up to her, physically catches her, and grabs her, like, are you okay? You need some help.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks at him, and he said her eyes were glazed over, her pupils were dilated, and her eyes were glazed over like, like a zombie or something like you see in a movie. That's exactly sort of the impression I got. And he said she never did answer me. She really wouldn't respond.